halfway point in the calendar, Road America is always a crucial event of any season. Drivers, of course, even the rookies, have now run a street circuit. They've run the oval, and they've run a permanent road course as well. This is an event where the rookies can kind of step up a little bit, including this one beside me right here from J. Howard Driver Development, Michael Costello. Michael, great qualifying effort. You've got a couple of races already in the books. What are your thoughts here today?
Just kind of do what I've been doing all season, just try and get solid points on the board. First half of it didn't go quite as planned as I wanted it to, but we've been working hard the whole weekend, and we'll just see what we can do here. We're fast, and obviously I hope for a podium, but top 5 would be awesome as well.
I talked about it already. St. Petersburg, the street circuit, Indianapolis, the road course, then the oval at IRP. What do you think about Road America?
Oh, man, I love this track, especially from the experience I had last year and everything. It's just such a great flowing track, Really suits my driving style as well, really aggressive track. So, yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites on the calendar.
I know you guys do a lot of sim work. You're on iRacing. You did the track walk with Jay Howard, your team owner, earlier in the week. Going into the race right now, I'm sure you've watched lots of onboard video, lots of races. What are your thoughts on the strategy? It's going to be 4 wide into 1.
Yes, honestly, it looks really similar to the way Indy was. 4 wide going into turn 1, and honestly, just getting your elbows out and just settling in, and just be smart through the whole thing. I mean, just looking at all the races, it's just such intense racing. But it'll be fun, and can't wait to it.
Your teammate Frankie Mossman finishing second earlier today. Obviously, a little help there. You watched his race. What are your thoughts on maybe the patience side of what's going to happen here? Like, your thoughts on racing?
Honestly, I think he did a really great job, with patience and everything. He was really, really fast. And, I learned a lot from it, where some moves work, some don't. And, just when to be patient, when to go, obviously. And, just by having him here, already done a race, especially with the way the track is now, I learned a lot from it.
Solid pace in qualifying. How's the race car?
Oh, the race car's on rails right now, It does everything I want it to do, and, obviously in the race, same thing, and we'll just see how that goes.
J. Howard Driver Development's got some great pilots here this year. Obviously, second-year driver Evagoras Papasavas right in the middle of the points championship, but some strong rookies like Michael here, as well as Tanner DeFavis. I had a chance to check in with the Freedom 75 winner earlier this week. With the opening race of the USF2000 doubleheader about set to go here on a Saturday morning, it is time to talk to the driver of the most recent win. That's the Freedom 75 from IRP, Tanner DeFavis. Let's talk about that race. We'll come and talk about Road America afterwards. Less than a week ago, you end up winning that big race in your hometown. Give me your thoughts. Has it sunk in that you were able to win the Freedom?
Yeah, so it's definitely finally sunk in yet. It was a great win. I'm very excited. I'm happy that I was able to pull it off, especially doing a partial season. It was my rookie season, so yeah, pretty unbelievable, but yeah, I'm really happy to be able to pull that off.
Obviously, momentum is very crucial in a series like this. I know you talked to me before about the fact that you didn't have all the funding put together to come to Road America. Were you able to? You're here, so were you able to put that together?
Yeah, so funny story. Frankie Mossman's dad, Brian Mossman, actually made a bet saying if I won, that he'd pay for my entry fee. So that definitely helped get me here. So yeah, that's awesome, and we were able to pick up a little bit of sponsors. So yeah, it was great. The win was great.
Obviously, a rookie in the series here, coming to Road America, a tough racetrack, the longest on the circuit. How have things gone for you for the first couple of days here? Of course, testing on Thursday, and then yesterday's practice and qualifying.
Yeah, so test 1, we were actually fairly quick, which was a little bit of a surprise since it's been a year since I've been here because I raced here in F4. But yeah, I love this track, and I think that really helps. So yeah, that went really well. And the second test, we had a little bit of issues with the engine, and then further issues with the gearbox in the second session, which caused a red flag. And we were just able to get out for qualifying. Got about 2 laps in, so because we had to replace the gearbox. So yeah.
One of the great things about this racetrack is it's long, it's fast, there's lots of braking zones. You can start at the back. If you have a good car, you can come to the front. What is your goal here in race number 1 of the weekend?
So in race 1 is just to try to keep it clean and get a really good lap for race 2 and set us up higher in the grid for race 2, and then hopefully we can just be as fast as we can.
Outright pace is key, of course, in qualifying. Do you have a car that can pass? Can you put that thing anywhere on the racetrack?
Absolutely. I think I can pass anywhere here, and I'm happy to show it once we get racing.
All right, so normally we watch the very front of the grid when they head down into turn number 1. We need to watch a little bit farther back. Tanner DeFavis is going to have his head down, digging to get forward. We get set to go for race number 1. We get back after these commercial messages. We'll go through the entire driver lineup.
You can feel confident Continental is the smart choice in tires.
And to handle extremes?
Yep. Tested from the Texas desert to near the Arctic Circle.
Really?
Really.
Anything for the guy who finds that one pothole?
Yeah, road hazard coverage has your back.
For real?
Absolutely.
Were they made by like a bajillion engineers?
Well, closer to 100. Continental. Welcome to the smart choice in tires.
Over the years, we've chased down a lot of dreams, each one leading to the next, all the way to our most electrifying dream yet. Introducing the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue. Made to inspire the newest generation of dreamers so they can make their dreams a reality. The all-new, all-electric Prologue from Honda.
Well, after 2 days of dry running, testing on Thursday and practice and qualifying yesterday, the USF2000 driver is about set to roll out here in wet conditions. It will be a challenge for all 21 drivers getting ready to roll here, as this track is a tough one in terms of wet weather running. Again, 21 drivers set to go. They are rolling onto the grid right now. Let's get things underway and have a look at the grid for the Elite Engines Grand Prix of Road America. Starting at the tail of the field will be Jace Bacon in the number 7 for Jay Howard Driver Development, the rookie making his first start here at Road America. Row number 10 will have Giovanni Cabrera, full-time USF Juniors driver, running in his second USF2000 event, the rookie for Exclusive Autosport in the number 93. Starting 19th, trouble in qualifying, so deep in the field, but coming off a victory in the Freedom 75 on the Oval at Indianapolis Raceway Park. That's Tanner DeFamus in the number 9 for Jay Howard Driver Development. He will start 19th. Row number 9, 17th and 18th. On the outside, Anthony Martello, the rookie Canadian driver, full-time USF Juniors pilot. His debut here this weekend in USF 2000. Martello for Exclusive with the number 95. He'll start alongside the Aussie. Strong run last year, second place in USF Juniors Championship points. He's got a good run coming in here, currently 7th in points. That is Quinn Armstrong for D-Force Racing in the number 11. He'll start in the 17th position. Moving up to row number 8 on the outside, number 57, Carson Etter for DC Autosport, the Californian, rolling off from 16th. He'll start alongside the Texan, Maxwell Jameson for D-Force Racing in the number 12. To row number 7, Lucas Ficuri out of Brazil for D-Force Racing, the rookie in the number 10. And from Australia, VRD Racing driver Xavier Kokai in the number 19, starting 13th. Row 6, 12th on the outside, another driver from Texas, Brady Golan, another full-time USF Juniors driver, Golan for D-Force Racing here in USF 2000 in the number 18. Alongside him out of Indianapolis, Indiana for DC Autosport, Ayrton Hauk in the number 58. Into the top 10 now, row number 5 on the outside, Hudson Schwartz for Pabst Racing, just 15 years of age, the rookie of the number 22 machine, starting 10th. Inside the driver we had in the booth earlier for USF Pro 2000. Second place in points right now, only one finish outside the top 5 this year. That's Evagoras Papasavas out of Ohio for Jay Howard Driver Development. Papasavas ready to attack from P9. Row number 4, champion last year from USF Juniors in the USF Pro Championship Scholarship livery for D-Force Racing, the Brazilian Nicolas Giafoni in the number 1. Set to start here in 8th spot. Alongside him, driver looking for his first career win, currently sitting 5th in points, a consistent year so far for Elliot Cox in the number 67, the drive planning sponsor machine for Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development. Moving into row number 3 on the outside is G3 Argyros, another USF Juniors driver, making his second start, or third start actually, here in USF 2000, having run both month of May events, one at Indianapolis and one at IRP. G3 Argyros out of California in the number 63 for Jay Howard Driver Development. Alongside him, Sam Corey, third place in points, a win already this year at NOLA Motorsports Park in April. Corey, the number 23 out of Cornelius, North Carolina for Pabst Racing. Row number 2. Best career start for Michael Costello. He will be P4. Actually was second in qualifying. Blew the checker. Got a penalty there, so he moves back to P4 outside row 2 for Michael Costello with the number 8 for Jay Howard Driver Development. But lots of pace there for Michael as he looks to try to grab his first victory as well. Alongside him, Joey Brienza, multi-time winner in the USF Juniors program. Brienza, a rookie here at USF 2000 in the number 91 machine for Exclusive Autosport. Brienza getting ready to roll off third place in the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation UBS Tatus. 21 drivers in the field, but 2 on the front row. Off pole would be Max Taylor, a winner at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for VRD Racing. 4th place in points coming in. Taylor, with that penalty to Costello, moving up to 2nd spot outside of the front row in the number 3. And the driver who is leading the way, pole position with a 209.726. Point leader as well, Max Garcia in the Advanced Auto Parts Pabst Racing number 24, starting on the pole position. 4 wins on the season for Garcia, coming off a 7th in IRP at the Freedom 75. So we are going to challenge these drivers, no doubt about it, as we have wet weather conditions. This is going to be an exciting one for sure. And joining me in the booth here today, alongside the voice of Road America, Eric Miller, is Christian Brooks, the driver for Pabst Racing in USF Pro 2000. Christian, let's bring you in here. You've had some experience driving at Road America in the wet. Tell me what it's like to get around this place when you don't have much visibility.
Yeah, well, actually, my first ever USF2000 qualifying was in the rain. So, you know, obviously very high speeds and very aggressive brake zones. So you definitely got to, you know, try to get a feel for the conditions as fast as you can. And, you know, as we saw the Indy cars earlier, the track looks pretty slick, so these drivers are going to have their hands full.
Hey, one thing as well, you know, pole position is the place to be anyways, in the wet for sure, because when you go down to turn number 1, these guys aren't going to see anything. The spray is going to be crazy. Talk a little bit about how bad the visibility is here in a wet weather track.
Yeah, I mean, you're always, you know, trying to bob and weave and just trying to see the next corner. So I think it's going to be, you know, probably pretty difficult at the back of the pack, and the guys at the front will have a bit of an advantage with the spray. But at the same time, it's good to always gauge the amount of grip from the driver in front of you. So, you know, everybody's going to have a fair shot in these conditions, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch.
Eric, let's chat a bit about the track itself. You've been sitting in on the last couple of sessions. What do you see here in terms of grip level?
Well, grip level is pretty good on the outside of turn 1. We saw a couple of passes for the lead under green in the previous session before it was red flagged for a little bit of oil down. So that's going to change how this racetrack behaves. Obviously, a little bit heavier rain during the NTT IndyCar Series practice session, and our USF Pro Championship was the last session in the dry before the rain really started to affect the racetrack. So we're going to see a little bit of that rubber come off the racetrack from the last 2 or 3 sessions. So that changes a little bit. Obviously, these cars a little bit less dependent and with a bit more mechanical grip. So that's going to change how these cars kind of balance out with the wet conditions.
Let's take a chance to have a look at the track map here as well. 3 essentially very long straightaways here, 1 curving, but all the way down, of course, the front straightaway into turn number 1, a very quick 90-degree right-hander, back down the hill to essentially 2's a kink, then into turn number 3, another 90-degree that leads onto the big straightaway through the kink turn 4 down to the hard-braking downhill left-hander. Turn number 5. From there, you're up the hill under the Corvette Bridge. You turn left, blind turn in that corner. Turn number 6 through the turn 7 kink, back down to turn 8, which is the hurry downs. Another 90-degree left-hander. You have to get a lot of speed out of there because then you go into the carousel. Round through the carousel, full-on power, all the way down through the kink, through the kettle bottoms, down into Canada Corner. Another hard-braking right-hander leads back up through Billy Mitchell Bend, which is turn number 13, then over to 14, final corner. Carrying a lot of speed through turn 14 back up the front straightaway. That's the lap here at Road America. Let's have a look as well at the top 5 in points. I mentioned that Max Garcia leading the way with 205 points right now. A pretty nice little advantage over Evagoras Papasavas. And indeed, we talked about Garcia being on pole. Papasavas with work to do back in 9th. But only 1 finish outside the top 5 this year for Papasavas, so watch for him to attack his way up. Sam Corey sitting 3rd place in points with 155 markers. Max Taylor, 127, and just 5 back from Taylor is Elliott Cox in the number 67 machine. Interesting as well to look at that as you have 4 different teams represented. Pabst Racing with a couple of drivers in the top 5, and Garcia and Corey. Papasavas for Jay Howard Driver Development. Max Taylor for VRD Racing. The lone effort for Elliott Cox right there with 122 points as he runs with Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development. Let's talk, Christian, a little bit about the racing line. For those that maybe haven't seen races in the wet before, you don't usually run the race line, right? Talk a little bit about how you have to kind of affect or change the way you go into the corners.
Yeah, so on entries, you know, specifically staying off the rubber because the braking can get, you know, super slippery, especially with the IndyCar rubber. So staying basically at least half a car to the inside under braking, and then around this place with the high-speed corners, you're going to see a lot of outside line off the rubber. So there's going to be a lot of different tactics. There's going to be some guys trying to use inside curbs to make the rotation, some guys fully offline trying to carry minimum speed. But I mean, that's the beauty of the rain, is you get a little bit of everything. So
a little bit of a wrench into the works here, Rob. Starting to get a much more torrential fall now, where we were in kind of a little bit of a light sprinkle with not as much moisture on the racetrack, but we've started to got a little bit more moisture falling from the sky. So the water's going to get a little bit deeper, obviously, as these tires are going to channel the water away. So with these cars, visibility obviously going to be a concern.
Let's also, Christian, you've had a chance to test on the new Continental tires, the rain tires. We spent many years, of course, with Cooper Tires. Continental's our new partner for a number of years going forward. We haven't had a wet weather race yet, but you guys have tested. How good are the Continental wets?
Yeah, I mean, the Continentals, from my experience, have had very, very good grip. So, I think that might be the saving grace for these drivers on this slick surface. But, we're going to find out here shortly. So, every time I've tested it, it's been great, but you never know with the condition. And this place seems to be a little bit tricky, so
indeed,
we're going to find out how the Continentals hold up.
We'll see how it goes for sure. The run into turn number 1 will obviously be treacherous. I've been told from race control we will do 2 laps around, so we're not going to get the green the first time by. We'll get a couple of laps, get these drivers some opportunity to kind of get some sight lines in the wet weather, find out where potentially there is standing water around the track as well. So indeed, looks to me like the AMR IndyCar safety crew is kind of rolling around having a look at things over in turn number 12 and 13, I think. Yeah, see they're actually having to look up through Canada Corner and out of Canada Corner up to 13 as well to find out how much standing water is on the racetrack.
Well, in this situation, it's really not as much of a standing water consideration. The previous session here had an oil down from 6 all the way through 12.
Oh.
And so that session went red while they cleaned up, and then they had a one-lap dash for their checkered flag. But AMR safety team, Road America safety team, just probably trying to clean up as much of that off the surface itself. In that circumstance, that the conditions, Christian, are going to be damp. That the grip is going to be really at a premium where you can find it. In the back of your mind, that there's been oil on the racetrack. How does that affect how you're going to attack kind of on the first lap? Because you want to, as Eva said earlier this morning, patiently aggressive was how he was going to really attack this racetrack. In a mindset from a driver standpoint, what do you do knowing that there is a little bit less grip, not just from the water?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to depend on where you're at in the field, right? I'd say if you're in the back of the pack, I'd probably wait for some people to make some mistakes because, going it down into Canada, it's slick down there anyway. So, up front, also taking it easy, making sure you don't make any big mistakes. But around 4th or 5th, maybe that's where you take some risk.
It's tough, isn't it? Because the guys at the back are going to hang back a bit. The guy up front, he's the first guy through the corners. He's really the first guy to find out what kind of grip there is. So it should be interesting for Max Garcia. And once again, joining us here in the booth is his teammate at Pabst Racing, Christian Brooks, who had a strong run in race number 1 for USF Pro 2000. Had to work his way back, fell back a bit with some contact in the opening lap, worked his way back up to 5th. And now you got a couple more races, one more this afternoon and one tomorrow. You're going to start outside of the front row on off pole for race 1 and very likely on the pole for race 2 and then on the pole for race 3. You got to like the way things are lining up for you here this weekend.
Yeah, no, it's looking good. We've had a little bit of a struggle to start out the season, but the car's been absolutely amazing. Pabst gave us a rocket of a race car. So, we've got the pace, but around this place, pace isn't all that matters. It's about playing the game of chess correct. So the draft's huge, and everybody in the top 5 can win. So just got to play my cards right and hopefully come out on top.
We talk a lot about the mental game here, especially when you're coming into a wet weather session, Christian, because there's a lot of variables, right? A lot of unknowns. Give me your thoughts on what the drivers are thinking about right now, because again, they roll off the mock grid. They're on pit lane right now. They're ready to roll. You guys are ready to get on track. Well, now we're waiting a bit while they're taking care of Canada Corner. What's going on in these guys' minds right now?
They're just anxious to see how much grip the track has.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And, the 2 pace laps, they're going to love. Just to be able to kind of get a feel for where you can actually brake for turn 1 and, just kind of feeling out that limit. Because, like you said, as the pole sitter, it's very difficult to understand the condition until you actually get out there. So they're a little anxious, but I think they're probably all looking forward to it.
Are you one of these guys that can have a nap in the car? I've seen some guys that kind of, when they're waiting on a red flag or something, they just have a little nap. Are you that kind of guy, or are you pretty wired up?
It depends on how the night before went. No, for sure. For sure, when you're buckled in and you're comfy in your chair, it gets pretty nice.
It's a poured seat.
I always found the race car to be the most comfortable chair, other than the recliner, that I found in my old age now. So we would take naps in the race car all the time.
That's it. Good stuff. So again, as I talked about, looking at the points with Garcia, Papasabas, Corey, Taylor, and Cox, your top 5, there are drivers that need big finishes here. Joey Brienza back in 6th spot. He's only a couple positions away from potentially getting into the top 5, top 4 as well in terms of points. Quinn Armstrong looking for a recovery. He's had a really good start to the season. 5 straight top 10s for the Australian Quinn Armstrong, then had a horrible weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course. Not of his own doing, got caught up in a couple of incidents and ends up with a couple of DNFs, finishing 22nd and 20th. A solid 4th place run on the oval in the Freedom 75 for Quinn. This would be a good bounce back for him. We talked about the fact he's a little deeper in the field, did not have a good qualifying run in 17th, so I think Quinn will be a guy who probably takes some risks here this weekend and to try to work his way forward. And again, this is one thing I love, because the rain is the great equalizer. Talk all about that, right? There are some drivers that are great in the rain, some struggle in the rain. I always say, though, you better love it, because if you don't love racing in the rain, you're not going to be fast, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, the art of racing in the rain is it's second to none. I mean, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you have a great car, sometimes you struggle a bit, but the rain is the great equalizer, like you said. So, you got to do it. You got to know how to do it. And there's a lot of guys that have years and years of karting experience that are going to have the upper hand here, and I think that's going to show. I
want to go there. Perfect. So not only, obviously, you're a driver here in the USF Pro Championships, you've won in USF2000, you've won in Pro 2000. You do a lot of coaching with Nash Motorsports and the top-level karting programs. I always laugh when it rains and guys don't go practice. They don't test, right? Well, I was going to go test this weekend, but it rained, so I didn't go out. That's when you should go out, because as a karter, get that experience in the rain is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. The driver I'm working with now, he is forced to go out every session, rain or dry. So, no, every lap, if you're out there spinning out and making mistakes, is only going to make you better.
That's it. Yeah.
I think most of the guys that are able to come into the road to Indy or make their way to this point, USF Pro Championships, they all have, that same mentality of, they know what's coming. So I think they're
and what makes you fast? People don't realize it's all about the right foot. It's all about modulating that throttle and being really, really soft with the hands, quiet with the hands, if you will.
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Because you have some guys in IndyCar like O'Ward who are extremely aggressive and will be fast in the rain, but it's about being able to catch it while having that aggression. And then you have guys like Alex Palou who are very, very smooth. So that's the thing, is there's so many different driving styles in the rain. And there's some corners that if you hit right, you can gain 4 or 5 tenths on someone, which would just never happen in the dry. So it makes it super interesting, especially with the racing wise, because you got to really plan out the overtake.
But sometimes you got to go there. The fast lines around the outside. You're going to see guys run the outside of the track, stay off that racing line. But if they make a pass, sometimes you got to go down where it's slippery.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to judge the brakes. I mean, these guys all crank their brake bias completely to the rear because it's super easy to lock fronts. So you're dancing on that brake pedal like it's an eggshell. So you gotta be careful. And obviously you drop a tire off in the grass, you're going for a little ride. So you got to make sure you're on top of it.
And that's what this is all about, folks. We are a development level. For those of you who don't know a lot about the USF Pro Championships, our program is essentially to develop drivers to move into Indy next, and of course then into the NTT IndyCar Series as well. Over $1.6 million in prize money and awards up for grabs this year for USF Pro Championships. And one of the things that separates this series from any other development ladder program in the world is the scholarship program. If you win the USF2000 championship, the scholarship to move to Indy to USF Pro 2000 is $458,400. So over $450,000 to win the championship to move up to the USF Pro 2000. If you win the Pro 2000 championship, like Christian's trying to do, that's worth over $681,000 to move to the Indy Next Series in 2025. And I think the beauty of USF Pro 2000 right now, Eric, is simply that we have done our job. If you look at the last 6 champions in USF Pro 2000, 4 are already in IndyCar. Renus VK, Kyle Kirkwood, Stingray Robb, and Christian Rasmussen already into IndyCar. The other 2 are front runners and stars in Indy Next, and Louis Foster and Miles Rowe. Both those guys are going IndyCar racing. So we've done our job putting guys into IndyCar.
Well, not only that within the ladder system, but I think you guys have done your job from how well spoken many of your champions and competitors are during and after their conclusion or to the next step. I mean, you talk about Eva earlier today, Christian today, how well spoken they are of the series. They understand the needs. And Christian, you mentioned that you're coaching some go-karters now. Working for Pabst Racing, there's a lot of people within Pabst Racing that have a lot of racing knowledge. You're tapping into that. As a coach for go-karters, how do you take that coaching that you get from Pabst Racing, has that coaching where you understand where they're coming from a little bit more, where it's maybe not necessarily a positive coaching moment, but it's something that there's something that you can fix? Do you take that information and kind of process it a little bit differently because you're kind of doing the same thing with the karters?
Absolutely. I mean, it's always easier to give criticism than receive it. But, to be fast as a racing driver, you always have to have an open mind and listen to the people around you. Some of the people on my team have been doing, most all of the people on my team have been doing this since before I was alive, right? So you always have to keep an open mind and listen to everyone around you, and, all information's good information. So lucky to have a very good team behind me, but like you said, it definitely correlates with the karting stuff, and I'll tell my drivers all the time, like, don't get upset because I was being criticized all last weekend, and now it's your turn, so it all goes hand in hand.
Being told the cleanup is essentially done about 5 minutes before we fire things up here, and I do want to remind folks that we will have our USF Pro 2000 drivers at an autograph session over in the American Legion tent at 1:30 today. It'll be right after this race, essentially, and we'll also have the USF 2000 drivers there at 2 o'clock. That might get pushed a little bit based on the fact that we're still driving here. We do want to say welcome to guests this weekend from West Bend, Wisconsin's Elite Engines, our sole supplier of the engine and power plants for the USF Pro 2000, USF 2000, and USF Juniors program. They've got a bunch of guests out here this weekend, so we say hello to everyone from Elite Engines. Also, VP Racing Fuel, our exclusive fuel supplier for all 3 levels of the USF Pro Championships. In 2021, VP expanded their role and became the official lubricant and coolant as well. In addition to VP Racing engine oil and VP Racing gear oil, this includes VP Racing's new line of Stay Frosty Performance Engine Coolant. So many great partners that we have. Tatis with our chassis, of course, Continental, our new tire partner, which we're thrilled to work with the good folks at Continental. If you are looking for premium performance during the month of June, receive a Visa prepaid card by mail with the purchase of 4 qualifying Continental Tire passenger tires. Terms and conditions apply. Visit continentaltire.com for full details. Continental Tire, the smart choice in tires. So again, drivers getting ready to go. There's your sign there. Autograph session 1:30 over in the American Legion tent for USF Pro 2000. We'll follow that right up with USF 2000. Great opportunity to meet the future stars of the NTT IndyCar Series. And if you're here enjoying yourself at Road America this weekend and want to continue to follow all the action of the USF Pro Championships, your best way to do that is to download the USF Pro Championships app. It's free. You can get it at Apple Store for iPhones, Google Play for Android mobile phones and tablets, and it's a fantastic way. All live timing on there. Live coverage of all our races is on the app as well. We have all the episodes of our mini documentary, The Climb. My USF Pro Insider podcast is on there as well. So great way to keep up on everything that's happening in this USF Pro Championships. This is where the stars of IndyCar develop themselves up the ladder system. When we do get on track, you'll also see our beautiful new pace car, the Honda Civic Type R pace car, the most powerful Honda production vehicle ever sold in the United States. Turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine producing an incredible 315 horsepower. So we'll see that Honda Type R get out there as well.
While we have a moment before on-track action continues, I want to thank the United States Air Force. Their members walking in the paddock area right there just across from us, but they're supporting the flight crews for tomorrow. And for our national anthem flyover. So we appreciate their service and certainly appreciate them being here at Road America this weekend.
Yeah,
I know it's a little wet for you guys, but enjoy your day today.
Any veterans who are here, stop by the American Legion as well. We're going to be there for the autograph session. The great people at the American Legion tent. Make sure if you're a veteran, stop by, say hi. And again, thank you for your service for sure. Again, getting ready to roll here with the Elite Engines Grand Prix of Road America. We talked to Christian Brooks a little bit about the mindset of these young drivers who had rolled out on pit lane. They figured they were ready to go racing. Have been put on this extended hold as the track crew cleaning up the oil spill that Eric had mentioned from the Radical Cup category. The track now ready to go. We will give them 2 laps around. Kristen, you already mentioned how crucial that is. That extra lap, it's going to mean that much to these drivers to get a better feel?
Absolutely. I think, just being able to kind of understand, where the grip is and, trust me, they're going to be testing all kinds of lines on these out
Right,
laps.
yeah.
So, no, it's definitely going to give them the confidence they need, going to the green flag.
We actually had a test here a couple of weeks ago that was wet. I don't think everybody took to the track. A number of people did, so it's a good opportunity to get the good feel for this weather coming. Hopefully it'll push off later on today, and at least tomorrow we get a nice dry day as well. Christian will want a dry day too, because he's starting on the pole position, likely tomorrow. I will say this, the wet weather, if it stays wet this afternoon, nobody's beating your time. It's going to lock you down for pole. That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think hopefully it washed enough rubber away to keep the pole for race 3 anyway. But yeah, I love racing in the rain. I don't know if I'd love to do it starting from pole because we know we have such a good car, but whatever happens, happens. So
you want to show what that car's got in the dry, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, in race number 1, we had probably the best race car on track. So as long as we're able to get a good start in the dry, I think we'll be able to take off.
Engines firing here, folks. We are ready to go. There you are. There is Max Garcia, that Advanced Auto Parts Pabst Racing number 24 machine. You see the Continental wet tires on. Right behind him, the number 3 of Max Taylor, looking for his second win on the season. Got his debut USF2000 victory on the road course at Indianapolis in the middle of May. There's Joey Brienza in the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation UBS machine. Sam Corey rolling off with the 23. G3 Argyros in the 63. There's the 67 of Elliot Cox. USF Juniors champion using the number 1, Nicholas Giaffone, and the rest of the field rolling off to get things underway. The opening lap, when we do eventually go green, is going to be wild. The amount of spray that will come up coming into turn 1, the visibility will be absolutely zero. And essentially, I guess, Christian, all you're really doing is keying essentially on that rain light in the back of the gearbox, right?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on, the speed, but as soon as they're taking the start, it's from mid-pack on, it's basically zero visibility. So, you kind of just got to be heads up, and sometimes, as bad as it may sound, you're almost guessing. So they're going to be searching down the straightaway to try to find any pocket.
Do you use the peripherals at all? Can you pick up stuff on the side? It's so hard to see. I've driven in the rain myself too, but it's so hard to be able to see it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of try to pick up, obviously all your brake markers change as well, right? So for sure your peripherals are going to be huge right now because you can't see too much in front of you. And you also have to, take into account how early the guys are going to be braking in front of you because, I can tell you one thing, the guy that's starting on pole, he's not going to go sending it into the brake zones on the first lap. So, you'll see the guys 4th, 5th, 6th, probably, taking a little more risk and making it happen.
Went green to checker in our first race for USF Pro 2000. These young drivers here at USF 2000, a much harder challenge in extremely tough conditions here in the wet weather on a newly paved racetrack from last year as well. So that's another little wrinkle to it as well for drivers, Eric, that may not have been here before.
Well, this racetrack is still so smooth from the repave that was done on October of 22 last year. So it's got about a season and a half on it, let's call it, from a race standpoint. So this pavement is still so very smooth. It doesn't necessarily have as much grip worn off from the polymer in the center of the corner at center apex. So it's got a little bit more grip in it, but it's still also, being so smooth on the surface, you're not getting necessarily graining in the tires, even in the dry, as much as laying the rubber down. So it can be a little bit more slippery on the newer pavement, and we've kind of seen that over the course of the last year or so with these rain races. So it's going to be interesting to see what offline many of these drivers are going to elect to run here. We'll kind of see a little bit about that, I think, more on the second pace lap as they kind of get a feel for where the puddles are, and then more exploring in that first lap under the clock start.
Like I often do, I like to say hello to all those of you who are tuned in around the country and around the world. Obviously an international field in all of our categories. We know we've got a bunch of people watching down under in Australia, those in Brazil, throughout South America, here in the U.S., of course, Canada as well. So hello to all of those of you who are taking some time out of your Saturday to watch some racing here today. Drivers working their way around for the first time through now the kink to get a feel for what this track's going to be like in the wet. We'll send them into turn 1 to begin this after another warm-up lap. You can see the rain actually falling on the track right now. It is significant and steady, so it's not like this track's going to be drying up at all throughout the session as well. That would be another wrinkle in, but rain steady here. And again, the driver who's going to have the best opportunity, the two guys up front, Max Garcia and Max Taylor, they're going to have that open look coming down into turn 1. Everybody else behind is going to lose that visibility as soon as they get rolling. And even at this pace speed, you can see how much spray that's getting shot up here as they all try to kind of navigate their way around. So one more lap before we go green. Get things underway for this event. Again, these drivers will be back out on track as well later on today. USF Pro 2000 Christian will be back behind the wheel for a 4:10 green flag. USF 2000 to follow them with a 5:05 green flag. This race, 12 laps or 40 minutes. That may be interesting with the length of the laps now with the wet weather. We may bump up against that 40-minute window as well.
Well, the clock starts when they cross the start-finish line here for that 40 minutes. Yeah. So if we can stay green, I think we may be close. But if we do have any yellows, certainly then it becomes a timed race. Does that change your mindset, Christian, when you know that you're going to get a lap count and all of a sudden it goes to a timed race?
I mean, when you're on track, you're always just trying to perform, to your highest of ability. And in these conditions, you don't have time to think about much. You're always, even at this track, you would think you have some time to relax on the straightaways, but you always have somebody in your mirrors trying to draft and trying to overtake. So, I think that, most of these drivers are just trying to keep their head down and focus. I don't even know if their teams will tell them that the race has been shortened by a lap or two.
And that's a good point. Is it mentally tougher in the wet? I know, like, when you're running in the dry, you're still totally focused. You're getting pressure the whole time, as you had said. Do you feel it's maybe a little bit mentally tougher? These guys are going to be spent by the end of this one.
Absolutely, because that line to have really good pace is so small. So, obviously you're way more prone to mistakes, and, these guys, they're going to have to be on their toes because it's not going to be easy, and, it's definitely in the dry is a lot more relaxed, so they're going to be struggling a bit.
So again, we are on our second pace lap to give these drivers the one more opportunity to get around the track here. We will get rolling here and send them on green flag into one, and when they get back up, you can see the drivers, some of them playing a little more now with trying to work those tires, get a feel for it.
I think we sometimes see in wet weather races too, it's very easy when you've got a clear racetrack ahead of you, especially if you're starting up front. But even if you're mid-pack and maybe leading the group 4th, 5th place on back, you get into a rhythm because the track is pretty consistent, and you just kind of get into that space of being able to brake at the same point every time you go to corner. In a wet weather race, Christian, the lap changes every single lap. Every corner is going to be different than the last time you came through.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And, especially when it starts to dry up, and who knows if the rain's going to stop here and the track will start drying up. The line's different every lap, and not only that, but you're finding advantages throughout the entire race. I mean, if they're doing 12 laps, you got to assume they're never going to reach their full potential, right? In 12 laps around a circuit like this. So, always exploring the track, always searching, and, whoever does that the best, you're going to see out front.
Again, getting set to roll here with the drivers in USF 2000 front row. Max Garcia alongside Max Taylor. Row 2, Joey Brienza and Michael Costello. Row 3, Sam Corey and G3 Argyros. Row 4, Elliot Cox and Nicholas Giafoni. Row number 5, Evagores Papasavas and Hudson Schwartz. Row 6, Ayrton Hauk and Brady Golan. Row 7, Xavier Kokai and Lucas Facuri. Row 8, Maxwell Jameson and Carson Eder. Row 9, Quinn Armstrong and Anthony Martella. Row 10, Tanner DeFabus and Giovanni Cabrera. And row 11 will be Jace Bacon. Getting ready to get things underway here for USF 2000. These drivers, of course, eager and ready to get on the loud pedal and get things underway. The first of 2 events of the Elite Engines Grand Prix of Road America. Again, excited to get things underway here. See which drivers step up. I always love seeing which drivers rise to the occasion in a situation like this. Who is the Rainmeister? Which drivers can really handle the situation and step their way forward? I think it's a skill set that so many of these drivers would like to get. You have to hone it through practice. You have to be on track. If you're testing and it's wet, you want to take full advantage of it. Get out there and get as much laps as you possibly can.
Red flag at start finish.
All right, so looked like we were going green. I don't know what's going on right now. Being told red flag.
I believe the rain and potentially maybe lightning in the area. Not sure if that's the case or not, but wow. Looks like it's at least a heavier downpour. And with these cars, certainly the possibility of some streams of water across the racetrack. And if race control doesn't like the way that the racetrack, standing water, unsafe conditions maybe for the drivers here. So that would bring out this red flag. So the the clock is continuing to roll with the red flag here, obviously, as we count down 35 minutes. Only 2 races here for USF 2000 this weekend. So race 1 and race 2 both today for USF 2000. So this certainly impacts point potential depending on how long this red flag lasts with the moisture in the air.
So indeed, confirming the conditions, not quite ideal to allow these drivers to get at it. Red flag has been given. They'll work their way back down into pit lane. And I guess we'll wait this out to a certain extent, whether or not the rain continues to come. Tough one, of course, for the drivers here in USF 2000. We've got a couple of laps in. We're looking to go racing. Obviously, the feedback coming in. A lot of drivers reporting back. I'm told that it's pretty bad out there. There's a significant amount of standing water as well. So there's the good shot of it right there down in the kettle bottoms. The amount of rain that continues to fall. You can see some of the rivers across the track. You'll normally get that. This facility, very well built, obviously great drainage, but there's only so much you can do when you do have the elevation changes there that you have at this track. Obviously, it's significantly lower down in the kettle bottoms as well, and you'll get those rivers across the track that there's really nothing you can do about it.
And I'll be very honest, we've had a lot of rain here over the course of the last, say, 2 to 3 weeks that the ground is fairly saturated in scenarios. So you do get a little bit of standing water in a couple of places, and what's more concerned than a puddle here and there is when you get a torrent across the racing surface.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of areas here at Road America which you have a little bit of crown to the racetrack, and water will go left or right of center, but there's also places where you have not banking, but you do have a little bit of a grade to the racetrack where everything on one side of the racetrack crosses to the other side. Kettle Bottom's one of those places where on the exit of the kink, that's the last place you really want to come up against a stream of water coming across,
right,
because it's going to vary in depth. It's going to be a centimeter deep or more in some situations. So from a safety standpoint, certainly makes sense to bring these cars to pit lane, give them the umbrella, and right now, depending on how long this red flag delay is going to be, it's nap time for a couple of the drivers.
Yeah, well, the clock is counting down, as we said, 40-minute session, so we are on the clock right now. Christian, let's have a look at the rest of the season. Obviously, we got racing to do here at Road America, but you got other races coming, Mid-Ohio, Toronto, obviously the finale in Portland at the end of August. How excited are you for Toronto? I'd have to say you're one of the best street racers that we have in the sport. You've won a couple of times at St. Petersburg. You're looking forward to Toronto?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, the street courses are definitely my jam. I think, having to put the car on the absolute limit and taking that risk is something that I really enjoy. And Toronto is just a whole different animal. I mean, that must be the most difficult track that I've driven.
Really?
I mean, last time I went there, I was out of the car for about 6 months beforehand. So to hop in at Toronto was pretty tough. But, now having a lot more experience under my belt and driving this car quite a bit, I'm really excited to get back there, and I know Paps has a really good machine. So, that's probably the race I've been looking forward to the most.
Let me ask you another question as well. I know that you keep yourself in very good shape. Have you kind of adjusted, like getting back in the car? After you were out of the car, you had the big incident at St. Petersburg a couple of years ago. You weren't able to complete the season. You're in the gym a lot. I know that. We have the same coach, actually, right? Chris G. Have you fine-tuned your fitness regime to really work for the USF Pro 2000 car?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why, you see that I have a bit of a bigger upper body, because these cars are quite heavy. So, you'll see a lot of Formula One drivers, and people will ask me, why aren't you skinny like them? Well, they have power steering, guys. Like, you don't really understand. So the pro car with all the downforce and the bigger front tires is very heavy to drive. Not quite at this point, but when you first get in, it's a bit of a shock coming from the USF 2000.
Okay.
So, definitely just a lot more weight training than I was used to, but it's definitely paid off. And, I feel a lot more comfortable behind the wheel.
Longer races as well, right? You guys run a lot more laps than the USF 2000, so not only is the car heavy, the steering's a lot heavier, you're running more laps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I actually appreciate that, because if you do, have a bit of a hiccup at the beginning of the race, you have time to work your way back, especially once you make your way to IndyCar. I mean, you see, especially at the race in Detroit, there were guys that were in dead last that were on the podium somehow.
Yeah.
So I think the longer races are really cool, but I think it's really good for your racecraft also, having these short sprint races and having to get it done, fairly early.
Seems we've got time. Let's talk a little bit about your career. I've obviously had a great opportunity to watch you come up through karting with what I do with ekartingnews.com and all the races I announced there. You took a little bit of a different run. You came out of karting. Instead of coming right into a USF2000 car, you actually did some rallycross racing. Talk a little bit about that. That was a lot of fun to watch you jump into that rallycross car.
Yeah, so that was, we definitely took the alternate route. A ton of fun.
Which may be why you like the rain racing a little bit better.
Exactly.
You're used to having the car not necessarily always underneath.
No, I'll tell you what, like hopping into the rallycross stuff and going straight into the dirt when, all I ever knew from karting was smooth as fast and don't slide, right?
Right, yep.
So, driving on the dirt is definitely the most difficult thing I've ever done with an all-wheel drive car with not much suspension travel. So it definitely helped hone my skills in, and definitely why I enjoy running in the rain.
Love it. Watching, of course, all the weather out here right now. Did we get a lightning strike? Did I miss that?
I think there was some flash photography behind us reflecting on the windows. Where it's off my forehead.
That's
I'm
a
not
possibility,
sure.
too. We could get something to dull that down a bit.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't have to necessarily say you like Toronto just because Rob's from Toronto.
This is true.
You don't have to say you like Toronto.
It is a fantastic race weekend, though.
It's a great racetrack. There's no question. I was never obviously a professional race car driver. I talked faster than I drove. But the Concrete Canyon, you talk about being in the street circuits, how much on the razor's edge you are with no ability to run off. And then you come to a place like Road America where it's a little bit more forgiving, but it's really not, because of the grass just kind of draws you right to the gravel trap too.
Yeah, I mean, a place like this, you have a lot of room for error in comparison, right? So you have to respect the walls at St. Pete and Toronto, and I think that's, it's very intimidating for a lot of drivers starting at St. Pete, starting at, one of the most difficult tracks on the schedule with no room for error. So, coming to a place like this, you're driving way harder because you're not scared of the grass, especially in practice. Like, you're really able to find where that limit is. As to, for St. Pete or Toronto, you never find where that limit is.
Yeah, you just kind of step your way up closer and closer, right?
Exactly.
Indeed. Hey, listen, let's talk about your season as well. You and I mentioned this. You out of the gate, not probably the results you're kind of looking for, but you guys are really starting to dial things. I feel like you guys are really lining up with Pabst really nicely right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We had a few races where we had some setbacks and some bad luck, but, that's as to be expected. If this was easy, I don't think any of us would love it so much. So, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but the past, few tests that we've done, and the car's been really good. So as long as we stay on the path we're on, I think, we're still going to be in this title fight. And I think, if we have another couple good races, we can be right there by the end of this weekend.
Stay with that upward trajectory, right? You're in the right place. And listen, you're going to start in the front row for both of the other races here this weekend. P2 for race number 2 this afternoon, and very likely on the pole for race number 3. I will let everybody know that we are, of course, putting our autograph sessions on hold until further notice. We'll figure out how things play out here and when we're going to be able to get that autograph session lined up over at the American Legion tent. But otherwise, watching the time click away as the track, I don't know whether it's going to get any better the way it is right now. And that'll be a decision from race control and, of course, the AMR IndyCar safety team to figure out exactly what we want to do. We will say hello to those people who are watching on the YouTube channel as well. I know I'm being told the chat window is a busy place right now. I'm sure our crew providing lots of information for those of you who are on the chat right now.
So looking at the radar right now, there's a pretty extensive band right now going from Manitowoc, which is about 30 minutes northeast of our location, all the way back to probably about Madison, which is about an hour away, hour and a half away or so from Road America. A heavier band of shower is still to come through, but it's moving easterly, and it seems to be kind of growing a little bit as it comes across Lake Winnebago. So it's possible that the rain's going to remain here for a majority of the afternoon here.
Yeah, not looking good right now for the drivers here in USF2000. Again, race control will be handling that, so we'll figure out how it all plays out. Max Garcia probably would like this to play out. I don't know what, off the top of my head, exactly what we would do. We might I think we probably would just cancel this race. I don't think they would go on points based on qualifying. I don't know exactly what our official move is on that.
Being a time certain schedule, getting the race started officially, I'm not sure where you'd go with being able to fit this one in. Logistically, for a lot of these teams, they may have other places to be, from a load-out standpoint.
And
so.
even if we were to try to run it first thing tomorrow morning, our drivers in USF2000 are probably flying home tonight. Many of them. They're done today.
Yeah, so
it's only USF Pro tomorrow morning.
Yeah, so logistically, it's probably going to be maybe a race 2. And that's all with a time certain schedule today.
We run 18 races on the year. There's always a possibility of adding another race to one of the events, whether Mid-Ohio, Toronto, or Portland at the end of the year. I believe though, I think USF2000 is nothing but triples. So I don't know that we do a quad. I know we do 4 races somewhere for the rest of the season, which is Mid-Ohio, Toronto, and Portland. All triple headers for USF2000. So a lot of work to be done here to understand exactly what's going on. We don't know as of yet what the plan will be. Christian Brooks from Pabst Racing joining me alongside the voice of Road America, Eric Miller. My name is, of course, Rob Howden. Great to be here at Road America, one of my favorite tracks in the country. Not my favorite right now with the weather we've got. We wanted to see these guys drive, and you can see the AMR IndyCar safety team continues to circulate around, gauging this racetrack, having a look. Even if it lightens up a little bit.
Those trucks will kind of shove a little bit more water off. They're a little heavier.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the one thing that you really don't want. I mean, we talked about a little bit of standing water, and it's not really a problem here normally unless, to use the term, we get a gully washer. And I think that happened just as we were starting to go for the pace lap. I think the rain came down just a little bit more heavily than it has been all day. It kind of subdued the excitement of trying to get this race underway. We're about halfway through, roughly, the clock in this one. So we know that pace laps here take about 5.5 to 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you give them a sighting lap and a go, you're maybe looking at 3-4 laps of green flag running time if they go now.
If they go now, exactly that.
And I think that likelihood is probably going to be less and less as the next minute or two starts to kind of click off the clock.
USF Pro Championships presented by Continental Tire will be back here at Road America on the August 9th to the 11th weekend. Alongside USAC, we'll have our USF Juniors drivers here, the very first rung of our program. Drivers coming straight in from karting.
That is a fantastic program
as
well. Juniors is fantastic.
It's grown.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to fill in for you 2 years ago here at Road America at that triple header for USF Juniors. But fantastic program for kids getting in the ladder. They certainly know how to go fast, and again, it's all part of getting to that next step for many of them. They may not necessarily go to the next step, but you really get a feel for how well off that open wheel racing is here in the United States with that program.
We had about 15 or 16 drivers last year, 26 now running in USF Juniors here this year. A big spurt of growth, a couple of new teams coming in as well. Inter MS and Ella Racing, just good to have some more teams coming on board. When we're here in August, we'll also be here with the Skip Barber Racing School, which is the official racing school of the USF Pro Championships. Their series, the Formula Car Series, you compete for $500,000 in prizes, including a $100,000 scholarship for the series champion. Take that $100,000 and move into USF Juniors. The Skip Barber Formula Race Series is a 7-weekend, 14-race series and takes place at the most iconic tracks in America, like this one here, Road America. The car is 160 horsepower, turbocharged engine, paddle shift, 6-speed, everything you need. Professional instruction, the crew, the video, data analysis, hospitality, all part of the Skip Barber Formula Race Series. And if you want to learn more or even go to a school to get yourself dialed in, go to skipbarber.com to learn more about what they have to offer. A couple of drivers out of their cars actually right now. I see the DC Autosport guys out of the cars. So it sounds like they've actually allowed the drivers to get out of the cars to potentially use the restroom at this point. But 22 minutes still to go. Not looking good here with the way the track is. Hope everybody's trying to stay dry somewhere around the track, too. All the campers that are here this weekend. If you got the tent, hopefully you're in the vehicle staying warm. Or, you know what? Pull out the umbrella. Get over to the paddock. Grab a brat. That's a good idea.
That's a very good idea. Lots of concession stands out here. Didn't get really a lunch break yesterday or today, the way that our on-track activity was scheduled.
I haven't had a brat yet either. I need to get one.
Well, now you guys share the same trainer. Would your trainer tell you that a brat is a good idea today?
If I don't use the bun, it'll be all right.
Okay.
Right? If just mustard and brat.
No carbs.
Yeah,
okay.
That's it.
Gotcha.
And I fasted all morning, so I'm okay. Christian's smiling at me like, you probably shouldn't do that, Rob.
You fasted all weekend or all week leading up to this, knowing you were going to be eating here.
That's probably true as well. 100%.
Well, we love having you guys here, and I really wish the track was in a little bit better weather situation this weekend, especially on this Saturday. But Rob, you and I have been working together for a lot of years here at Road America, and these races typically go one of two ways: we go green and checkered, or we have some problems.
Yeah.
But the problems usually are a result of people being too aggressive.
Well, yellows breed yellows too, right? Every time you have a restart, guys can be aggressive. And you're right. That's one of the things, and I'll be honest, our race director sat down with our drivers because the event we had at Indianapolis in May was a little messy. Let's say that. There's a lot of drivers being super aggressive, and Christian will tell you at the drivers' meeting, our director of competition, Tony Kottman, kind of read the riot act to the boys a little bit. Hey, you got to watch what you're doing here now.
But in this situation, now you've got drivers that amped up, ready to go. They sat down, got back up, ready after the delay, sitting here in the red flag. Now, if we don't get this round in, now you've got one race this weekend.
Yeah, true enough.
How aggressive do you get in the back trying to make up those spots to get points?
Ask that guy. Christian, what do you think?
How aggressive would you want to be?
I think kind of realizing that they're only going to have one shot is going to definitely bring out some mayhem. So
little elbows out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody really was looking forward to racing in this rain because, as we've been sitting here, it's really started to come down.
Yeah, so as it's starting to come down, a little bit harder right now too. But your experience with with kind of getting maybe losing a race for a round, if you have a race that's kind of yellow filled, where you don't get a chance to gain points, and you kind of get stuck. If you had a bad qualifying session, you start 10th and you end up 9th because of, yellows breed yellows. What does that do to the mindset for the rest of the weekend, where you're putting yourself or positioning yourself to try to get points? Because in my opinion, that's a double-edged sword. You can be aggressive to get points, but if you're too aggressive, you could lose points.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I said earlier, I think the mindset's always the same. For these guys that are contending for the championship, it's, gain as many points as possible and try to be smart. But, when you only have one race on the table and, everybody wants that win and, we're all obviously extremely competitive, right? So it's easy to get carried away sometimes. But, I think most of these USF drivers up front have, quite a bit of respect. Indy was a bit messy. But, I think at this track you should see some clean racing because the nature of this place is, pretty wide open. And, if you get ran off, you don't usually go to the wall. So, luckily it's a pretty safe place in that regard.
In your race earlier, Simon Sykes went to the outside of Mossman in 14, coming to that last corner, and that's obviously going to cost Sykes some points after that first round. You go into race 2 with a mindset, okay, we've got one in, we've got 2 more to go this weekend. Do you prefer the triple header weekends?
I do when our car's as good as it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. If you're struggling with setup and you got a triple header, it might be a little more difficult, but we've our whole team has been in the top 5 basically every session since we've been here. So these are the weekends that you definitely want to have a triple header when the car is rolling.
So a little bit of an update here from the series. We're going to do whatever we can to possibly get this race in. We see the clock is winding down. We actually have the track right now essentially until I think 2 o'clock. So there's an opportunity still. Once this front comes through and maybe gets to the tail end, we're going to be able to go racing. Of course, our crew sitting down with Road America and IndyCar to find out what we could possibly do to kind of change things around. There is a possibility of running this race at the very end of the day as well. So things are being looked at right now for opportunities to get this race in. But again, Eric, I think you had looked at the weather a little bit. There's that front coming through. Once it's done, I think we're going to be done for the day in terms of weather.
Yeah, it just needs to get through. Now, the biggest problem is there's so much moisture aloft from the Lake Winnebago area that if that moisture continues to get picked up into the air, it kind of feeds a little bit of the frontal system moving through. So if we can avoid that, or if it kind of evaporates that warm, moist air in the atmosphere, get it to kind of move the front system through, I think we'll be good. Qualifying this afternoon, I really didn't intend on having rain here, much afternoon. So, kind of was forecasted for a kind of a 10 to 12:30 kind of window, and it's kind of stuck around a little bit. I think a little bit more than we anticipated. But nevertheless, we want to get racing in. Certainly here at Road America, we try all the time to race as much as we can with weather conditions, but we also want to do it safely for not only the competitors on the track, but for fans too.
I don't think Christian Brooks figured we were going to work him this hard in this booth visit.
Yeah, it's been a long one, but it's been fun talking to you guys.
You thought this was going to be a free lunch, didn't you?
That's it. So, again, drivers are sitting in their cars for a majority of them. The umbrellas are up. Everybody's kind of waiting to see what we're going to be able to do here. And, again, as we know, the schedule in flux at this point here. It's flexible enough that we can try things out. We have the track, as I said, until 2 o'clock. But it's feeling to me like this may be something where we try to reschedule to the end of the day. That's a possibility here. Of course, we have 2 races coming up at the end of the day as well already. As I said before, the USF Pro 2000 set to go at 4:10 green flag. And then, again, the second race for these drivers here in USF2000 at 5:05. I guess we could wait, give them a little bit of a break between races and bring them back out again. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. Obviously, there's a lot of permutations that could potentially roll, but it's all about weather right now. How long is this thing going to roll? Are we going to get it to dry up a little bit? And as we know, the IndyCar safety crew continues to circulate around the track. I guarantee you, Eric, they're reporting in lap after lap about where they think the track's going.
No, absolutely. See the sweeper trucks and the vac trucks out quite literally at center apex in 14 right now. They're just kind of continuing to get some of that water to see if the water is continuously running across the racetrack, if they can get some of the ponding under control. But again, right now, looking out the window and the weather rock, it looks a little damp right now.
Yeah, more information coming in. Indy next qualifying has been postponed right now as well. IndyCar qualifying still as scheduled, so that's kind of where we are in terms of that right now as well. Lots going on for sure. I got actually a question here, Christian, from Steve Whittick. He's out. Did you play baseball?
I did, actually.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Tell me more about your baseball career.
Well, I started what was the name of the league? Shelton, maybe? Okay. I don't remember what they called it, but I do remember I was a pitcher, and it was kind of like the situation where I was flying from go-kart races back to catch my baseball games.
Yep.
And eventually my dad gave me the ultimatum of, you want to race or play baseball, and that was kind of the whole deal there.
I like the second question. I'm going to bring it up, actually. He said, who rocked the flat bill first, your dad, Buddy Rice, or you?
I'd say, well, definitely my dad.
He rocked the flat bill before Buddy?
I would think so, yeah.
So Christian,
my dad was born with a flat bill on.
So Christian couldn't see, but he's going like this behind us right now.
So listen, obviously Buddy Rice, Indianapolis 500 race winner. You came up with Buddy Rice karting. He was one of your mentors coming up through the ranks. And again, when you went into the rallycross, that was with Buddy as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, Buddy taught me a lot of what I know now, and helped me throughout all of my rallycross career. And he's still a good friend, and I think. Definitely one of the best guys around to learn from, but Indy 500 winner, so that was always a pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit about your karting career as well. Again, I had a chance to come up through. What do you think was your biggest victory?
I'm going to have to think about that one.
That's a tough one, isn't it? Back in the day when you were younger, you used to race against your buddy Colton Herta, too.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's before he was a name, so they weren't as big back then.
That's right.
But, no, I'd say back to SCUSA Pro Tour in New Orleans. When I was running on the CRG and X30 Pro, only because CRG hadn't won in X30 or in a top single speed class in the U.S.
Yep.
And I think it was something crazy like 15 years,
yep.
At least in the Pro Tour. So when I came across the line, Eddie Tonini and all the guys from CRG were crying, and we dominated the whole weekend. So that was probably my most memorable. There's been too many.
There's been lots of wins. And the thing is, for those of you who don't know about the Supercarts USA Pro Tour, one of the most competitive series. Obviously, only a couple of national series in the sport. And the amount of talent in that X30 Pro category was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, to win one of those races is just as difficult. To win it's different, of course, but the racecraft and, really being able to make the right decisions. And that's why you see the racecraft translate into the open wheel stuff is – the karting in the U.S. is very, very high level, for ever since I've been doing it. So, and, I think it's only, getting more and more competitive. So I think with, the newfound, I think a lot of the younger crowd is coming into Formula Car and starting to understand what IndyCar and Formula One and everything is. And, there's people showing up at the track wanting to be the next Max Verstappen.
That's it, right?
Weekly now. So.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is if you go to my website, ekartingnews.com, every May, right before the 500, we do our karting grid. So it's essentially the lineup for the 500, but all the karters. Every kart, those guys, because everybody's driven a kart. All 33 drivers have driven a kart, it's awesome to see those old pictures of them coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you one sports car or IndyCar or Formula One driver that hasn't came up through karting.
Yep.
I mean, the NASCAR guys, a lot of them have gone through, the dirt midgets and stuff like that. But probably 99% of any top driver came from.
Yeah, I think Ed Carpenter might be the only guy that actually didn't start in karting. He's raced karts a lot in other events. I don't think he came through karts. And then, of course, you look at the Superkarts USA Super Nationals, the biggest karting event of the year, every year in Las Vegas, and the drivers who have been there. Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, obviously Michael Schumacher was there as well, but you go back to George Russell, who won there as well. Who else am I thinking that have won there? Lance Stroll won there. We saw so many. Travis Pastrana came and raced one year. We saw so many guys that, like a Logan Sargent, he was a winner there as well, who have moved on to Formula One, all racing at the Super Nationals.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing is, like, when you go to a race like that and you have the opportunity to race against these drivers that, you've heard about and you know how good they are, and then you perform at their level, then it kind of, I think it makes you dream bigger because you realize, okay, if they can do it, maybe I have a shot.
That's it.
For sure, going against the Europeans when they came over and a lot of those guys, I was racing Russell and Stroll that in those 2 years when they won and had some pretty hard battles with them in the heat races. But, it's always cool. And, the karting stuff is, you definitely got to be on it. So it's
100%.
It's a lot of fun.
And it's physical. That's one thing, too, right? People don't realize at that top level how physical it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to be in good shape, and none of the kids in karting really worry about it because they live in the go-kart, right?
It's true. Yeah.
That's something that's a lot different than the open wheel stuff. Is you only get a certain number of laps to actually acclimate your muscles and everything, for the car. As to in karting, some kids are on track, 4 or 5 days a week.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you work out without even realizing you're having so much fun.
True enough.
For like me, I came into karting late. I actually had dirt cars, dirt stock cars, ran some sprint car stuff, and then basically sold all of it, got a go-kart, and ran go-karts with my brother for a long time. And, my brother's a champion out here at the Road America Motorplex at Karting Kettle, the old Karting Kettle.
The Karting Kettle, yeah.
And at Dousman at Badger. And, what I found so hard for me acclimating to a kart is I am such a stab and steer guy, point and shoot. And being smooth was never, ever a possibility for me.
Christian would beat that out of you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So maybe I need a Christian as a coach.
There you go.
Maybe I need to get another
Christian, who are you coaching now? Let's give a shout out.
Dean Peterson.
All right.
Yeah, he's the next one.
He's been stepping up, hasn't he?
He's extremely talented.
That's good.
I mean, he's making my job really easy, to be honest. I mean, he's been in the go-kart for about 8 months now, and the kid is, like, unreal. He just won his last race at Adams. And I actually fly straight from here to Ohio for the Pro Tour.
Yep.
And, he's going to be – I think he's going to be fighting for the win. He hasn't even been racing
wow.
for a year. Yeah,
that's amazing.
He's unreal, honestly, yeah.
Again, so many great young talented drivers running in the karting ranks. Many of them, of course, looking at USF Juniors. That's what we see with our USF Juniors program. So many young drivers that we've talked about for many years running in national level karting events, and great to see them kind of stepping their way up, having gone through the Skip Barber Racing School, whatever it may be, to get themselves dialed in. Time is winding down here. We will say hello again to those of you who are hanging in here on the YouTube channel, our live stream, to what has essentially become a USF Pro Championship podcast episode as we continue to talk throughout the day here. Hope you, all of you, those of you here around the racetrack, staying dry as well. Ideally, we're going to be able to go racing here pretty soon. As Eric had said, the weather is eventually going to move through. It's not like this is something we're going to have throughout the entire day. We are going to dry up. IndyCar qualifying, as I had said, still on for 225. So, kind of obviously IndyCar being the focus of the weekend, we'll kind of base our stuff, our potential adjustments around IndyCar, do the best we can to see if we can't get 2 races in for the drivers here in USF2000. I'm doing my best to try to get some updates from race control, but at this point, we're kind of battling what we have, and And see how it all plays out. Christian Brooks from Pabst Racing joining us here. A solid run to the top 5 in the opening USF Pro 2000 race. A triple header for USF Pro 2000. He'll be on the front row for both races, very likely. Provisionally on the pole for race 3, outside of the front row for race number 2, which will, again, take place later on today. That race gets set to go for, I believe I said a 4:10 green flag. Whether or not that stays 4:10, probably not. There's a good possibility with an adjusted schedule, things may get moved around a little bit, but I guarantee you lots happening in the background right now with the staff of the USF Pro Championship. We're sitting down with everybody from Road America and IndyCar to decide how potentially things can get adjusted to get these guys on the racetrack and get that race that they deserve. As I mentioned before, the next 3 rounds of the series, first week of July at Mid-Ohio, then later in July in Toronto, and then Portland. Mid-Ohio and Portland are both triple headers. I'd said that Toronto's only a double, so I guess there's always a possibility of adding a race to Toronto, but that schedule is absolutely packed as well. All the support races that happen up there on the streets of Toronto. They run down Lakeshore Boulevard. Looking forward to that one for sure. Big championship run here this year so far, though, for Max Garcia. As I mentioned before, he has not finished outside the top 7. The Freedom 75 on the oval just 2 weeks ago was his worst finish. Started 7th, finished 7th. 3 wins to start off the season. 4 straight podiums with a third in the opening round at NOLA Motorsports Park. Or the second round at NOLA, rather. Then he was 4th in the back end of the triple header at NOLA. 6th in the opening round at Indianapolis. And he scored the victory after an incident in turn number 1. Scooted through from P3 after 1st and 2nd off the racetrack, scoring a victory there. And then, of course, 7th, as I said. 28-point lead over Evagoras Papasavas, who has been in the top 5 in 7 of the 8 races. Only a DNF 19th in the back end of the doubleheader at Indianapolis broke that streak. 3rd at Indianapolis Raceway Park for his 6th podium of the year. Evagoras, who joined us in the USF Pro 2000 race here as our driver analyst, did a tremendous job there, but also has been just so consistent on the season. 3 podiums for Sam Corey, currently in the 3rd spot, 155 points. 50 points behind Max Garcia, his teammate at Pabst Racing. Sam's got work to do. He needs a couple of wins. Got one at NOLA Motorsports Park, but an 11th at IRP opened the door a little bit. Max Taylor getting that victory, as I said, at Indianapolis. He was on the podium both races, 1st and 2nd at the road course events at IMS. First podium of the year came at NOLA. Garcia is quite a ways back. Taylor's quite a ways back from Garcia. Elliot Cox now in the 5th spot. And then one thing interesting about the USF 2000 driver standings, we have seen a lot of drivers who have come into the series and kind of win and move 1 year. Kyle Kirkwood, of course, 1 year in USF 2000, won the championship, moved right up to pro, won there 1 year, and same in the Indy Next Series, did his first year and won all 3 series. But for the most part, most drivers will come in, they do 1 year to learn, and then the next year to win. Get all the experience you need, and then you move on to the win after that. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Top 5 in points, all second-year drivers in the series. So top rookie right now is Joey Brienza. Then we've got Quinn Armstrong, Nicholas Giafoni, and Hudson Schwartz, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, all coming in from the USF Juniors program. And then Tanner DeFabus, a rookie driver, having won the Freedom 75, bumping his way up into 10th. We talked about working out. We talked about karting. Christian, what's your take on sim racing? Are you an iRacing guy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, any chance you get to go on the sim is massive.
Okay.
I have a simulator at home, and basically every single driver out here has a sim. And you learn the fundamentals. You learn brake shapes and stuff like that are a lot different in the car stuff, throttle traces. And, I download data online and overlay with friends or competitors.
Okay.
And, hop on with the guys that I'm actually racing with, which, is super beneficial. And it doesn't cost a lot of money.
It doesn't cost a lot of money, true. One of the keys that I think, and I like to bring this up, and you can talk a little bit about it, is when you go from the sim and then you do those first laps on the track, you have to make that transition because it's not exactly the same. What mental process do you go through to take what you got from the sim and then apply it to the actual physical racetrack itself?
I honestly think that driving the sim is more difficult.
Really?
Because you don't have the feeling of the slip and the inertia in your body.
Indeed.
Right? So, the timing is all just hands, eyes, and feet instead of having the feel. So honestly, I think, at least for me, I know I'm a lot faster in real life than I am on the sim, and there's some guys that are absolute missiles on the sim that aren't very good in real life. It's very difficult to take the two, but for me it helps tremendously with just learning the track, learning brake pressures at some point.
Yeah, we talked about brake pressure before. That's one of the big things coming out of karting into cars that people don't understand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, I took my, Formula car brake feel that, I, as best as I could, and basically put the bushings and made it a brick, right? Compared to a lot of other people's sim setups are soft like a sports car, and they have the craziest pedal systems now where you can adjust it on your computer and make it any race car you want.
Wow.
Just with brake feel, even ABS and stuff like that. So, and obviously the Delara sims that you guys have seen and stuff like that, there's no other better way of testing than actually driving on the track.
And I'm a pretty stout iRacing proponent. I love racing in the sim too, and the biggest adjustment I had, starting, I think the very first one I ever drove in was probably the 1989 Papyrus IndyCar at Indianapolis 500 was probably the first one. I did that with a flight yoke and rudder pedals.
Wow.
Like from an airplane joystick, and to full on. I run Fanatec stuff, but I've got springs and a rumble motor, butt kickers where, my whole sim rig just shakes. It's about as close to a motion rig as you can get without having the motion. And I think that's probably the next purchase is a motion rig for me. But it's just interesting to see how far technology's come, in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years with sim racing, of how realistic and detailed it is for you as a training tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, something I'll point out is when you're able to spend that much time, like, for example, in these series, sometimes we get 45-minute practice straight to qualifying. And, on the sim, you can sit there for, 3-4 days just practicing. So you'll find little details and key things about the car that you're driving or the track surface or whatever that, definitely translates into real life that, when you're driving in real life, you understand, because you always have that delta in your head, right?
Yeah.
In the iRacing, you always have that delta up top. So to be able to kind of, experience that in real life, I think overall makes you a better driver.
So, folks, getting told that this race has been officially postponed, so we'll wrap things up here for the drivers at USF2000. We'll figure out what happens later on in the day, whether the schedule gets moved around, so we'll keep you up to date. Make sure to jump on our social media to find exactly what's going to happen. We have those two races already planned for this afternoon. We'll see how things play out. Christian, thank you so much, man. It was great to have you here. Lots to talk about as well. I appreciate that. And also, how do people follow you on social media? Let's get that out there.
No, thank you, Rob. I really appreciate talking to you guys. At Christian Brooks Racing on Instagram, Twitter, CB44 Racing, and Facebook, Christian Brooks.
I love it. So, last but not least, 2 more races this weekend. Am I going to be talking to you in Victory Lane?
That's definitely the plan. As long as I keep my nose clean and make the right decisions out there, I think we'll be talking again.
Funny, every time you ask that question, the first thing they say is, "That's the plan."
That's the plan. That's the plan.
You never know.
It's the same answer no matter who's sitting in that chair, and I love it. It's great. Thank you,
Christian. Thank you very
Awesome. Thank
much.
you, guys.
Obviously, Eric, thank you as well. Folks, those of you tuning in on the live broadcast, again, stay tuned to our social media to find out when we're going. We'll shut things down, and we do appreciate it, folks. On behalf of Anderson Promotions and Continental Tires, my name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.